Week we are going to start our synthesis unit, which is the second part of the AP test that we're going to prepare for. So as you may recall, the AP Language and Composition test, which you're going to take in May, consists of two parts. The first part is the 60-minute multiple choice test, and the second part is the essay portion, where you are going to write 3 essays over the course of 2 hours and 15 minutes. You've already prepared first trimester for the rhetorical analysis prompt, which we did first trimester. And this trimester, we're going to prepare for this synthesis essay, which is a fancy way of basically saying a research paper. Okay? So, you basically have 2 options on the AP test when you get to the synthesis prompt. One, it's going to ask you to take a stand. That's number 1 possibility, where you argue a claim of fact or argue a claim of policy. The second type of prompt that you'd get is what I call a factors prompt, but what you're really doing is you are going to be writing an evaluation essay. Slightly different, one you haven't had as much experience with. It's also pretty rare to have that one come up on the test, but I'm going to prepare you for that as well. It's likely that you'll have to do one of these where you are going to take a stand on a particular issue. You'll get what's known as a claim of fact or a claim of policy. Okay? You'll be given 6 to 7 sources that you'll have to read, and that's why they give you 15 extra minutes at the beginning of the test to sort through those sources. One of those 6 sources, maybe 2 of them, will be a visual source. So you'll get an image of some sort, maybe a comic strip, a chart, a graph, something that you have to read that's visual. And again, you get 15 minutes to look through those things and quote-unquote research in order to respond to this prompt that you've been given. Okay. So let me go over a little bit of argumentative theory first. As it says here, argument is a persuasive discourse, a coherent and considered movement from claim to conclusion. And this is where I get on my soapbox a little bit here. True argument, and I like that the College Board defines it this way in their AP Lang curriculum, that true argument is not about winning and losing like we see on TV programs all the time. It's actually about learning things, about understanding people and getting a better understanding of the people that inhabit this earth. So argument is not necessarily cramming your thoughts into somebody else's brain. You're participating in an argument in order to learn, in order to understand other people's perspectives, which is a much healthier way to go about living. Okay? First type of argument that we're going to go over is what's known as a Rogerian argument. And this is kind of a cool, I think, philosophy to look at these things. And so Rogerian arguments are those that are based on the assumption that having a full understanding, a complete understanding, not only of your own position, but also of the opposing position, is essential to basically being an intelligent human being, to responding to it persuasively and refuting a particular argument in a way that is accommodating rather than alienating. So no doubt you have watched these political shows on television before where you basically have 2 commentators screaming at each other about the issues of the day. And this is how TV is nowadays. TV politics are black and white, where we have a far right-wing argument and a far left-wing argument. And it makes for good television, as these commentators will yell at each other for an hour. It's fun, but that's not how real intelligent people talk. And so what we're going to try and do here, second trimester, along with learning different things in terms of how to research arguments and how to present arguments, we're going to try and keep in mind this big picture of approaching arguments with intelligence, the Rogerian way. So I want to make it clear that the topics that are important to us nationally, in our communities, within our own homes, are not simple topics. And the answers are never simple. There are smart people all over the place that disagree with us, and they have actual legitimate reasons for their arguments. So we need to make sure that we approach our own arguments, the things we write this trimester, with intelligence, and not trying to claim that the answers to any of these things are simple. So if you can approach your writing this trimester and your thinking that particular way, that we're looking at very complex issues, and there are lots of people who have different ways of looking at these things, and those opposing arguments are legitimate as well. I might disagree with them, but they are still legitimate. If you can approach arguments that way, you're going to do pretty well. Okay, so our goal is to, as it says here, seek out an understanding of all opinions on whatever topic we're looking at. This is a life skill, not just trimester 2 AP Lang 2019. Okay, so we're going to start off with some things here that are just some terms. You know some of these things here, so we'll do the first one here. You should write these down in your notebooks. A claim is also known as an assertion or a proposition. A thesis is a type of claim, and a claim states an argument's main idea or position. A claim must be arguable. That means that it must state a particular position that someone might disagree with or agree with. It is an opinion, generally, that is stated like a fact, but it is an opinion. Okay, so if you look at these things right here, and I've already got it highlighted here what the correct answer is, so that's probably not very good. But which one is a claim? Many schools have single-sex classrooms. This is something we could check to find out if that's the case, and so that's not so much a claim. Single-sex classrooms have been around for years, especially in private schools. We could check on that to see if that's truth, so that is not a claim. Single-sex classrooms are ineffective because they do not prepare students for the realities of the workplace. Now we actually have an argumentative claim where you would need to argue what you mean by ineffective and in what ways are single-sex classrooms ineffective. If you do that, maybe then we could see why you would argue that they don't prepare students for the workplace. Thus, we have a claim. Okay, so I want to go on to the different types of claims. There are 3 that we're going to focus on this trimester. The first one is called a claim of fact, and a claim of fact asserts that a condition has existed, it exists, or it will exist, and they are generally supported by facts or data. So Zimbabwe is in Africa is not a claim of fact, it is just a fact. But if you say that Zimbabwe has an unstable government, this would be something that is arguable. I would bet that there are some people in Zimbabwe that say that our government is stable. People who that government is working for might say that sort of thing. Okay. Restaurants on Main Street serve more customers at breakfast than at lunch. This is something we could probably do a survey on. We could study some of the data and see that that's true. So that would just be a fact. It's not a claim of fact. But this next one right here, restaurants on Main Street are more popular with older patrons than with younger ones. This is one that could be a claim of fact, and you'll see that many claims of facts rely on our definition of certain words. So in this case, we would need to define what you mean by popular. And so that's kind of what this whole argument hinges on, is what do you mean by popular. You probably would also need to define what you mean by older and younger, so we could clearly understand where this is coming from. Okay, so there we have a claim of fact. Okay, so here are some other claims of fact. This one, claim of fact, serves as a prediction. Social Security program will go bankrupt by 2025. This is a claim of fact. That's a prediction. Cell phones increase the incidence of brain tumors. This is a causal argument, and so you could talk about this kind of thing. Right now, that's a theory, which is different from a fact. Okay, women are more talkative than men. It would be an argument that relies on a definition, especially the definition of what you mean by talkative. Claims of fact often pivot on what exactly is factual, and they often rely on a clarification of what certain terms actually mean. So these arguments hinge on matters oftentimes of interpretation. Claims of fact, kind of the most common of all claims. Okay, let's move on to claims of value. So claim of value is one that argues whether something is good or bad, whether something is right or wrong, or whether something is desirable or undesirable. So a claim of value is the kind of thing that you see in movie reviews or book reviews, television show reviews, any kind of review certainly would be a claim of value. If you say that something is good or bad, right or wrong, desirable or undesirable, these would be claims of value. Okay? So a claim of value oftentimes seems like it could be just something that's an opinion. I think this movie is good or I think this movie is bad. That's sort of a matter of taste. But a good claim of value, when it's done properly, relies on, as it says here, established criteria or standards. So where you would actually identify what the standards are of a good movie. A good movie must have good acting. It must have a cinematic perspective. It needs to have a unified plot line. Whatever the case may be, you need to set up an established criteria in order to properly defend a claim of value. Okay? So the third kind of claim is what's known as a claim of policy, and the AP test loves claims of policy. Claims of policy are ones that basically argue for a change or for not changing something systematically. So asserts that specific policies should be instituted as solutions to problems. So you're regularly going to have claims that use the words should be or must be. So we're going to use those a lot this trimester when we're writing thesis statements, words like this, should be or must be. So this is a claim of policy. Saline High School should institute an open campus lunch policy. This is some sort of change that you want to have, presumably to have more fun during lunch. Okay. The government's No Child Left Behind Act must be repealed, for it serves as a deterrent to valuable education in public schools. So you're saying that some law should be changed. This would be a claim of policy. Okay, so we've got our three types of claims. We've got a claim of fact, claim of value, and claim of policy. Now you're going to get out your homework, and there's a series of claims, and you have to identify which one of the three are each one of those claims. Okay, see if you can do that. Thanks for listening.